Hey everyone, I'm James, aka JellyKnees, and today is April 29th, 2026. It's time for our second monthly developer update detailing the changes we made over last month, our plans for May, and our overall progress towards Ethereal's next test in our early access release. This was a big month for Ethereal, with us kicking off the month by launching our Steam page for the game, where we detail our plans for early access. We create a dedicated hub for the game as well. So far, in the 3 weeks the game's page has been live, we've accumulated over 1,100 wish lists, with that number increasing every single day. And honestly, this is better than I could have imagined in such a short time and with no traditional marketing efforts as of yet. It's been a massive win in my and the team's sales, so thank you for everyone who's wishlisted so far, and if you haven't, I'll include a link in the description, or you can visit our website and click the link in the top right of the page. Before we get started this month, I want to provide some quick stats for April and the progress we made. So in April, we had 17 pushes to GitHub, 15 Steam testing builds published, 6 new UI screens designed, 2 more myth reworks completed, 2 new team members onboarded, and over 400 newsletter subscribers added to our newsletter list. That is just incredible, and our team is pushing really hard to make sure that the game is everything that it can be. As a reminder, in last month's video, we listed 5 places we wanted to make improvements and changes in April. Those places were new UI implementation, map changes and additions, myth sound design changes, 3 additional bots, minion changes, and a new minion type. So let's jump into the first one and talk about the UI changes made during April. The first one is related to a system that we'll talk a little bit more about later, but we've added a refillable potion slot to the main UI. This lives in the bottom right corner next to the items, and this will be something that every myth has on the start of a match. Again, we'll get into the details of the system a little bit later, but a new UI nevertheless. The other thing we've been working on is designing the new item builder. This will be a system that's present both in-game and on our website. The goal of this is that you can put builds on one and have them show up on the other, and you can think of builds while you're on the go instead of only being able to create them while you're in-game. And then finally, the new UI update that I have for everyone is that we have a UI engineer that joined the team. This is somebody who's going to take the designs that we've been working on and focus more full time on building out those new screens and new systems that we need to make the game the best it can be. Next, for part 2 of our update, we want to talk about the map changes that we made. And while there's still a lot to do, we've made some excellent progress so far. Starting with the addition of our jump pads. So this is something that we talked about in a blog post a few weeks ago, but we've added jump pads to Ethereal in order to help traverse both from Void to the side lanes of Fire and Ice, but also in Void a little bit more. So you'll notice on screen we also have a jump pad that goes over the middle of Void, so you can actually see someone flying over the top if they hit that jump pad. And what this is trying to do is both provide options for faster rotations for lanes, but also make it more of a choice, right? Do I go through the jungle and take jungle camps on my way to go do something else, or do I really just need to beeline to another lane, make sure I get there as fast as possible for the best gank to help my team? The next thing I want to talk about is our real-time portals. So this is our V1 of these portals. This is another thing we showed off in our blog posts, but we're changing our portal system to be something you can actually see through and see what's happening on the other side. The current version lets you do that, but we're working on a V2 as well. That'll make the transition through those portals a little more seamless. Third thing we changed on the map is we've made Ice Lane just a little bit less blinding. This is something we've heard a lot of feedback on in previous tests, is that when you're sitting in lane for 10 minutes, Ice Lane gets to be a bit much with those blues and whites, so we've dulled those down a little bit just so it's a little easier on the eyes. The next thing is our new crow system. This is something I was super excited about when we finished it, and I have not talked about it in a blog post yet. So what this is basically a non-ward alert system for the map. We've selected a couple places around the map, and these will transition probably over time, but that will have random crow spawns there. And when an allied or enemy myth goes through, those crows will fly off and make noise in an area around the map as well. So this could be something that you get alerted that somebody may be coming up to gank behind you, or it could be something that your team sets off and alerts the enemy team that they're showing up or trying to gank. And it gives just a little more variation in the moment-to-moment gameplay. And finally, one of the other things that we've been working on is standardizing our map sizes and the pathway sizes specifically. So what we've decided on is what we're calling 2 Dantes tall is what's going to be our height, and this is going to be the traditional height for basically every asset on the map to give us a vertical minimum effectively of what we need to hit for verticality. And then for width of paths, we're going with 2 Grognarks wide. The goal for this is to kind of use them as measuring sticks as we're making changes on the map or looking through different areas to make sure there's enough room for combat to happen, for people to feel like they can outmaneuver, outplay without just like bumping into walls or bumping into each other all the time. So we're expanding a lot of the pathways to fit these new things, or expanding the height of the walls to fit that 2 Dantes tall metric. Now let's talk about sound effects and their role in gameplay, specifically around ranged basic attacks. So for Dante this month, one of the things that I was working on is making sure that there is a audio difference when you miss a basic attack versus when you hit a basic attack. So what I will do is over the next couple seconds, I will play the sound of a miss, and I'll play the sound of a hit. The goal for these is to make sure that, again, you can not only visually tell the difference between those two things, you can hear the difference between those two things, both if you're playing as Dante and if you're playing as an enemy. And this is going to be expanded out into all ranged characters. We want to make sure that this is consistently something you can be aware of and think about while you're playing without having to see the damage number pop up on an enemy or without anything like that. And you can pay attention to other places. The goal is to expand this into melees as well, but the sound design is going to be a little different on those, so we're going to have to look into it a little more. Now for a miss on our side, the additional bots. And this is something that I take credit for because it was on me, but while work has begun adding Talos, Malaya, and Dante as AI bots, this is unfortunately a place we weren't able to get everything done that we hoped in April. Easy mode for them is mostly complete. There's still a couple things to work out here and there, and we expect medium and hard should follow quickly behind, but we'll keep working away on this and we'll provide progress updates as we progress. Now let's talk about some minion changes we made this month, and this is more about the refillable potion that I mentioned earlier. So this is a new system to Ethereal that will replace the need for purchasable health and mana potions, and instead this refillable potion will provide a % of missing health and mana on use. When laning in Ethereal, you'll be faced with a Berserker minion once every few waves, and this was always intended to help minion waves push into towers and objectives, but killing them, other than the gold increase, didn't really feel special. So what we wanted to do is make it so that when you kill a Berserker minion, you now get a charge of this refillable potion. And it's all allies that are in a radius of this minion death that gets the charge, and the goal of this is to create the form of sustain for players in lane to keep combat flowing a little bit more and keep it more active rather than backing to base all the time. We also wanted to provide players with the agency of when to use that sustain for maximum benefit. There's nothing worse than getting a heal when you're that far away from full health, so you could hold on to it in this case and decide to use it a little bit later when it's more effective. This system is fully complete and working, so as we go through some internal testing, we may have some tweaks to it, but we're excited about what it's doing for gameplay already and for player agency already. Finally, I want to briefly touch on some other changes we made in April, including the addition of the animation library. What this is we know that animations are some of the roughest spots in Ethereal. And right now we don't have an on-staff animator. And so we're looking at outsourcing where we can get better animations to fill the gap for the time being. One of those places is a software service called Mixamo, which we now have full access to and can download animations for our characters from there. And then Unreal Engine also has an animation sample pack with over 500 animations that we're planning on utilizing wherever we can for movement, climbing, all of those kinds of things. Between these two services, we expect animations to get a leap of improvement for all of these myths, while we then hire an on-staff animator to then make them much more unique and consistent with the myth's theme. And the final thing we added this month was recoil to Dante's basic attacks. This was also kind of a place that we were experimenting to see if this is what we wanted for myths, and I think it's proving so impactful to have just that little bit of screen shake whenever a basic attack fires off. And this is something, again, we're going to do for range basic attacks and melee basic attacks, as well as abilities. Make sure that there's some kind of visual feedback outside of visual effects that then gives the player an idea of whether they hit something, missed something, all that good stuff. So that's all in the works as well. Now let's talk about what we're going to be working on in May. I'm trying to be a little more realistic, so we're not going to end up with goals that are missed anymore. So we're going to finish implementing the 3 in-progress bots. Again, that is Talos, Malaya, and Dante. We're also going to be working on some larger scale map changes. This includes stuff like removing a camp, moving where the buffs are in the side lanes, and switching around where the guardians and the dragons sit on the maps. Animation library updates to myths. We're going to start with Dante on this and expand outward, but we want to show you the visual difference between the two using those new services I just talked about. And we're also going to add some minion clarity in how they aggro to people. We want you to be aware when a minion has aggroed you. We want it to be very clear of what aggros and what doesn't. So we're going to be fleshing that out a little bit more. And finally, one of the bigger things is we're going to start working on our class ability updates. Now to wrap up, let's talk about our percent of progress to test and to our full release. So this is something I went back and forth about, and I actually had some conversations in the Discord. So join in the Discord if you want to talk to me more. But had some conversations about what percentage we were at towards our next test. And while I think we've made a lot of progress in April, I feel like 70% is really where we're at. That yes, we've made leaps and bounds from last month where I said 60%. And I think we've made a lot of work done a lot of big things this month, but there's still a lot more for us to do. And I'm excited about this last 30% being a huge milestone of differences in gameplay feel and myth feel and all of those things before we could get to another big test. And finally, for our percent of progress to Ethereal's early access release, I'm going to say 40%. This is another place that I think we're making a lot of good progress on the necessary systems, but there's also a lot more characters we have to add, a lot more systems we want to add, a lot more neutral things like the obelisk or the phases to Atropos that we want to work on before early access would become a thing. And so there's a lot of work ahead of us, but I'm excited to keep moving with the team, keep talking to you guys. The conversations and the suggestions that you guys have been providing on all the different social channels, I read every single one of them. I try my best to respond to every single one of them. And I really appreciate the enthusiasm that you guys have shared so far with Ethereal's renewed progress. So thanks so much. We'll keep working in May, and you'll get some more blog posts, more emails, more newsletter updates, and another update at the end of May, and I'll see you then.